Thank you, Howard, and I'll try and keep this brief because it's been a long day and you've heard some of this already. So I won't try and repeat what other points have been made. I guess from an environmental point of view, it might be thought that once you've set environmental limits, the problem's solved and we don't need to worry about these things. Regrettably, that's not true. I think we're all bound together in water management of necessity, and I guess the opportunity for us is that due to the hydrological cycle at a very fundamental level, water is the ultimate renewable resource. Turning to some of the issues which seem to have arisen, I think the most difficult issue that we are not yet resolving and haven't yet had the proper conversation about is the equity one. And I think Susie and others have said that economics can only help us to a very limited extent, in fact, perhaps not at all. But we need to have that discussion. We need to understand our own society and in particular questions about ownership, which we've neatly stepped aside here today. We need to address those before we can contemplate making and selling water in a way that society will be comfortable with. Water is accessed by way of permission. At this stage, we don't charge for its use. We've undertaken a social contract whereby it is able to be used free of charge, provided that public interests are catered for. I think we're reaching a new stage where we actually have to reassess that. We have to ask ourselves, on what basis should water be made available for use? And on the other hand, who's contributing to it and the costs? And one of the problems in our thinking, I would suggest, is that we are not yet separating out questions of allocation, particularly initial allocation, from questions about transition. We really need to make that separation. And I think there's a hint of that in what we heard Susie in her second presentation today, that recognise that we're in this for long term and we need to address ourselves to matters of transition. But we don't want to get the initial allocation wrong because of that problem of transition. And I urge you to think carefully about that point. I was interested to see or to hear Alistair Patrick, who I know is a very busy man at the moment, say that our objective is to make process. Actually, I think he meant progress. But I'm a little bit concerned that we don't turn this into process, and this is a very difficult and complicated issue to try and address. I guess my take-home message, where to from here, I'm very concerned when I look at the amount of information that's been required and the complexity of the development of these processes, and don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to them in the Rotorua and Taupo situation. And a bit like Steve Markham was referring to before, I think that we will have difficulty in translating that into other parts of the country. So I guess my question, particularly to the experts in the room, and there are many, is can we establish what the preconditions might be to develop more sophisticated and in particular market-based instruments? What information do we need? What level of precision do we have, for example, in environmental models before you can embark on this? Or are we going to get ourselves in a very big hole along the lines of what Paul was just referring to? So I guess that's my big picture question here. I'll step back and maybe make some further observations later. Thank you.